Hi everyone, Bill Barhydt here, CEO at Abra. Welcome to our headquarters in Mountain View. I'm happy to be joined today by Jared Tate, the founder of DigiByte. Welcome, Jared.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you for having DigiByte on your platform.
My pleasure. We'll get into that. So today we're going to talk to Jared about what's happening in the world of DigiByte, do a little update on Abra, and just see where it goes. So how are things going at DigiByte?
They're going incredible. Yeah. We have an absolutely amazing community. One of the unique things about DigiByte is it's never been an ICO or a company. It's just a completely grassroots movement that's going on 5 years old now. So we have people working on projects, around the clock. I'm learning new stuff every day. One of the biggest things that we had just happen is Apple actually just approved our new iOS wallet.
Oh, congrats.
And it's a true, SPV, talk straight to the blockchain. So we're super excited about that.
Gotcha.
So,
are there other SPV wallets for DigiByte out there?
There is, for Android. But this will be we've had it there before, but this is our only one on the iTunes store.
Yeah, so tell me about the recent growth. Some of the numbers that you can share for what's going on in the DigiByte world.
Going back to April of 2017, we were actually the first ones to activate SegWit, just like a month or two before Litecoin, and then a few months later Bitcoin did it, and from that point until now, we've had over 230,000 full client installs. So that's the full desktop Qt wallet. So the majority of that was, last fall. Obviously, there was a lot of new people that came into this space. But yeah, it's been exponential this past year.
Yeah.
In January of 2017, our market cap was roughly 2 million. And in January of this year, I think we peaked out at like 1.6 billion. So, in about 12 months, it was pretty incredible growth. So, in the community is just expanded dramatically as well.
Yeah, we've been really impressed. I mean, we've seen a lot of growth in DigiByte usage, probably disproportionate to the other cryptocurrencies in our app over the last several weeks. I'm curious to get your perspective on how people are using DigiByte and what the core use cases are that would be driving adoption and even speculation.
I think it's two main things. It's just like I explained to people. If you take DigiByte, and this also works with Bitcoin, imagine it's an Oreo. At the bottom layer, you've got the core protocol communications. Well, what incentivizes people to run it? Well, that's where the digital asset, DigiByte, or Bitcoin comes in. And once you're on top of that, you can start building a lot of cool use cases. One of those use cases that got people pretty excited is the fact that you could use our new wallet that's in the iTunes store literally for authentication to websites to replace passwords. So, we're doing a lot of things outside of just the payments arena. But then the second thing is because as fast as DigiByte is, so currently if you take the top 100, DigiByte, it's actually the longest blockchain, and that's because we have the fastest blocks. We got 15-second blocks. So a lot of people actually use DigiByte for arbitrage between exchanges, and then also for remittance, just because of how quick it is. You can send a payment, like if I pay a developer in Australia, he can turn around and move it 2 minutes later, or even less than that sometimes, and you don't have to wait for the long times like you do with Bitcoin.
Yeah. So just as kind of like a little mini segue into what's going on at Abra. We've seen shockingly myriad ways of people actually buying DigiCash in our system. We recently rolled out Visa, MasterCard support. We've had people in international markets depositing money via Visa, MasterCard to buy DigiByte. We have people depositing Bitcoin and Litecoin and then using that to convert money into DigiByte. So we support 25 cryptocurrencies in the system now. We rolled out the last 5, I think, about 6 or 7 weeks ago. And like I said, we're seeing a clear disproportionate interest in DigiByte versus the likes of some of the what would be considered traditional altcoins, if that's not a conflict in terms, in the system today. And I'm curious why you think DigiByte would be more popular for some people versus a Dash or a Monero, or a Doge, or some of the other kind of traditional altcoins.
I think the simple explanation is people just when they download a wallet, send a transaction, and just see how fast it is, it kind of sells itself. And then the number two thing, which I think is important, is people realize, as far as the traditional altcoins go, I would go out on a limb here and say DigiByte actually had the fairest launch of any of them. So, there was never an ICO. It was announced ahead of time, and we've truly, there is no company, there's no central organization behind it. So it really is a grassroots global movement of decentralization, in the space.
Yeah. So talk to me about decentralization for a moment. So there's a few unique properties about DigiByte. So first, the block cycle is 15 seconds.
Yes.
And that's related to the fact that you have 5 different mining algorithms, which each work every kind of minute and 15-ish seconds, if I understand correctly.
Yes.
So explain how that works and why that's secure and how that relates to decentralization.
The biggest thing is these 5 unique algorithms. Each one accounts for 20% of the blocks mined. And one of the interesting things about DigiByte is you could literally take all the Bitcoin mining power in the world, throw it at DigiByte, and you'd only get 20% of the blocks. And the cool part is when you did that, we have something known as DigiShield and Multi-Shield that allows for real-time difficulty adjustment. And for those that may have never heard of difficulty adjustment, that's what makes sure, like on the Bitcoin blockchain, blocks occur every 10 minutes. And that's, like in the case of DigiByte, every 15 seconds. And there's variations throughout blockchains. But because of our multi-algo approach and the fact that you can literally take all the ASIC Bitcoin mining power in the world and you put it on par with people that are still able to mine with GPUs and stuff on other algorithms, so the hardware arms race is somewhat mitigated. And then you combine that with the real-time adjustment. A lot of people don't realize, back in 2014, a lot of the altcoins were attacked. Dogecoin, Litecoin, etc. And so when DigiByte first launched in 2014, we had a 2-hour retarget, and we had the same difficulty adjustment that Bitcoin did. And people were able to attack our chain, so we'd have a sudden increase, like a 5 or 10-fold increase in hash rate. They would mine blocks every few seconds until the difficulty finally caught up, and then they would instantly go dump it on the exchange, and then they would leave, and all of a sudden the blocks would freeze. The blockchain would freeze.
Right.
And so we're like, okay, we got to come up with a solution for this. We got to make it real time. And that solution has now been implemented into everything from Bcash to Zcash, and even Ethereum pulled in, some of the stuff we pioneered. So
we were talking earlier, and you had an interesting, analogy to what's happening in Bitcoin, where you mentioned that because so much mining power is based in China, for example, if there was a massive countrywide outage for power in China, that we could potentially lose 40%, 50% even of the current hash power right on Bitcoin, which if that was out of whack for, let's say, a few days with the difficulty adjustments, right, that would bring the network to its knees. Could you comment on that?
Yeah. So, the first case that I saw this happening was actually with Dogecoin, the same period. Their chain back in 2014 froze for almost 2 days between blocks. And then, we worked with them to help fix it. And the same thing could happen with Bitcoin, absolutely. If you have this massive centralization at these mining farms in China, and there's a natural disaster that knocks out that area, around southern China where these miners are, it could be a big problem. In fact, if you just look at what happened during the Bitcoin Cash hard fork, I was telling people, I'm like, I don't know what everybody's waiting for. You only have 10% of the hash rate breaking off. It's going to be days and weeks, and hours between blocks, and that was the case.
Didn't they end up having to do a manual adjustment at one point on Bitcoin Cash?
But that wasn't even enough.
Right.
Because
but they tried.
They tried, yeah.
Which they shouldn't have to do in theory, right?
Yeah, in theory, but it's a bug and a vulnerability that I've been talking about for some time.
Or a design flaw, I suppose you could say.
Yeah.
Eventually, it should stabilize if it works correctly.
Right, and if the hash is consistent.
So. I want to talk to you about cybersecurity. You have 2 products, Multi-Shield and DigiShield. Talk to me about what those products are, how they work, what they do, why people are using them.
Well, to start off, the original vision, the DigiByte blockchain started with the news headline, target 110 million customers' data stolen. So from day one, we felt that this technology can fix 95% of the cybersecurity vulnerabilities in the internet today. And how should people really relate to that or kind of understand that? I like to bring in this analogy of DNA and nature. So if you look at your own body, you have millions of cells of DNA throughout your system, right? Well, what if all the DNA in your body was just kept in your fingertip? And you had an accident, you chopped it off, cutting up vegetables, right? It would be a problem. Well, that's how the internet works today. You have all these very centralized services where if you have a data breach or you have some problem, obviously it causes a lot of damage, and there's just a lot of vulnerabilities because when the internet was first developed, it wasn't really designed to be secure. So I like to think and explain to people blockchain technology is kind of rebuilding the internet from the ground up and mimicking what we've seen in nature for a millennia. All around you, whether it's trees, plants, the seeds, right? You have identical copies duplicated and replicated.
Sure.
A mushroom, millions of spores that are identical, and that's how life survives. Well, this paradigm shift that we call blockchain technology is really mimicking what's been happening in nature for a millennia, and transitioning, into the digital data world.
Sure.
So that's a good way for people to think about it.
So make it real for a second. So let's talk about multi-shield, right? What's an example of a cybersecurity vulnerability that you're alluding to that the multi-shield technology addresses directly?
So multi-shield itself actually helps secure the blockchain itself, right? One of the more practical applications of what we're talking about is something we call DigiID, which is where you have your wallet and your private keys, but instead of using your private keys just to send and receive transactions, you have this decentralized system that you can trust, but you don't have to trust, right? It's a trustless system, but you can also use those private keys to authenticate yourself when you log in a website.
I see.
So instead of having to remember, 100 different passwords for different systems, you can literally use your wallet and use your keys to cryptographically sign in and out of a website.
Yep.
And so you don't have, that centralized system. So and then once you start building decentralized applications on top of that, which multi-shield helps secure the blockchain at the protocol level. So if we go back to those 3 layers, multi-shield fits into the cybersecurity realm, at the bottom level, and then helps ensure and secure the digital assets, right? But yeah, so one of the things, like when I explain how a blockchain is, it's not just one piece. There's like subsystems, and how those subsystems interact cryptographically. You can use those and kind of rework them for some very innovative things to fix, vulnerabilities in the internet. I don't know. I don't want to go into too much technical detail, but there's a lot of very innovative, cool stuff you can do.
Yeah, super interesting. So tell me about the future for DigiByte. I mean, what does it look like? What's next? Where do you see it 5 years from now?
Well, if you were to go back and take a timestamp, and look at the market cap list from 2014 or 2015 or 2016, you will see that there's only been a handful of projects that have continuously been there and continuously innovated, continuously progressed. So, if you look back at the last 5 years and see the things we've innovated, pioneered, we're going to continue doing that up until the year 2035 and beyond. So in 2035, the last DigiBytes are actually minted. So the idea was 21 billion in 21 years. So, we've been discussing some algorithm swaps. We've been discussing, changing to maybe a hybrid proof of work and proof of stake system. But more importantly, what we're focused on is building real world utility and applications, like what I'm working on right now with real estate, that people will use and they won't even really know that it's on the blockchain or what it is. There'll be a little powered by DigiByte logo there. But at the end of the day, it'll make their life easier and better, and they'll see this innovative technology. But it's like today when you go to a website and you see HTTP. Most people have no idea what that is.
Right.
But that underlying protocol layer allows for a lot of amazing things to happen on the internet that we know.
Yeah, it sure does. So do you see DigiByte, or maybe you can speak for what you perceive to be the community's opinion on this? Does the DigiByte community see DigiByte as a store of value, or as a currency to be used in payments, or both? Or, there's this raging debate within the Bitcoin community, right? The 2Xers like myself lost that fight last year to say, okay, to make it a payment rail, we need to grow the block size. So right now, Bitcoin is focused on being that digital gold, and that's fine. That's what the community wants. And then Lightning is supposed to help make that transition to the payment rail. What's the analogous answer for DigiByte?
Well, I would say both. Different people are using it for different things. And, I send payments to developers all the time, right? And, I'll send it and it's there in a couple minutes. And you actually reduce a lot of the volatility risk. If it's just simply a payment for something, there's the use case. And we're 40 times faster, and we've got code in there that doubles the block size into the future.
I see.
You know, we
so
can
the
scale.
block size changes are automated.
Yeah.
So
every
even if
2
you're
years.
not, even if you don't have full blocks, the sizes will automatically grow.
Yeah, you know,
Interesting.
the idea is that we'll scale, you know, into the future. But then on the other hand, you know, we also see DigiByte as a digital asset. Like if you go to digibyte.io, there's a graphic there that shows like a person sending a transaction, and it points out that you can have all this, what we call the digital payload that you can append, whether it's documents, music, videos, you know, and there's a lot of different things you can do. So a DigiByte's almost like a vehicle that you can transmit. And that's why we didn't call it, you know, DigiCoin or whatever. It's a byte of data, right? So that was kind of the thought there. So yeah, both.
Yep, fantastic. So thanks for the overview on DigiByte. It's really super interesting, and I think people in the broader Abra community that aren't as familiar, you know, with the technology are going to find it super interesting. I know we do at Abra. I mean, one of the things, so we've been getting hammered on social media by your community in the last couple of months about a whole bunch of things that they want to see, you know, the ability to go native, right? Because right now DigiByte is stored as a synthetic asset in our system.
You know, and I had about 20 people from our community that wanted me to clarify exactly what, so I'd love to hear.
No doubt, yeah. So we basically have a roadmap where we look at taking assets native based upon adoption and usage, and that's part of why the synthetic currency model is so powerful. We can launch everything and then backtrack and figure out what we should take native, which means that you can support deposits and withdrawals, which is the, you know, obviously the request that you're getting. So that's something that we are taking to heart and looking at. We've got a really complex roadmap at Abra. I'll tell you right now, we're working on native Ether, ERC20, and a whole bunch of other stuff. We're launching, you know, SEPA soon, and it's just, which is European deposits and withdrawals. So it's complex, but as your stuff has taken off and the community has been very consistent, it's definitely caused my product team to really notice, and it's something that we're looking hard at. So I'm sure we'll figure it out, no doubt. I just can't say when. Of course, my team would probably hit me with a hammer if I committed to a date. But it's something we definitely want to do. And you know, we'd actually love to get your team or the community involved in that. That's something that we haven't been very good at, is opening up the platform so that the community can actually participate in development. And so that's something that we're also thinking about, which you know, I'm sure we'll follow up on with both yourself as well as the community. But thanks again. Maybe I'll just give a quick update for everyone on what's going on in the broader Abra world. So we had a fantastic first half. Our business is probably about 4x bigger now than it was at the end of December. Even in the downturn of the kind of, you know, crypto prices coming down, our business continued to grow. We launched first the initial 20 cryptocurrencies, then we launched another 5 in May, bringing our total up to 25. So in addition to DigiByte, we're seeing really strong uptake now in the native Litecoin support that we added a few weeks ago. Now that we support Litecoin deposits, we're seeing a huge amount of influx of people depositing Litecoin in order to use the Litecoin to invest in other cryptocurrencies or hedge their Litecoin in fiat. So we're seeing a lot of people do deposits in crypto, both Bitcoin and Litecoin, in order to do short-term hedging in fiat to preserve the value in a down market, and then convert the currency, the fiat, back to crypto if they think that the market's going up again. We're seeing a lot of interest in Ripple, Monero, you know, Doge even. I have to smile, you know, it's always been near and dear to my heart. Of course, core Bitcoin purchases are all super interesting. We rolled out Visa, MasterCard support last week globally, and mostly for debit cards. We're already seeing a lot of uptake there. As I mentioned, you know, I guess I should say this off the record for our online viewers, you know, we are going to launch native Ether support soon. Don't have an exact date for you, but it's way at the top of my list, which also opens the door for native ERC20, which is, for those of you who don't know, ICO. Most ICO tokens are based upon this Ether ERC20 support. So anyway, we have, I think it's a fantastic set of features coming. And we've got some surprises too. I think I'm not going to give away now in terms of things that are going to cause people to be using the Abra app every day, even if they're not actively buying and selling crypto. So I'll leave it at that for now, except to say, you know, we've got a fantastic 60 days ahead in terms of things we've got planned for the community. I'll stop there and say thank you everyone for watching, and best regards from the Abra team here in Mountain View, California, and hopefully see you again real soon.